Good morning, everybody. We're live from the birdhouse. It is June 18th, and today we're giving you an update about the different birds people are seeing in their yards, as well as baby birds. There's been lots of baby bird activity, so we'll show you what some of those little guys look like and what you should do if you happen to find one in your yard. Today at the birdhouse, we have a couple things going on. Of course, it's the day before Father's Day, so it tends to be a fun and busy day. We've got lots of great things for dad if you're looking for a gift. Also, we have a plant sale going on, so that's going to go on till about 4 o'clock or so. And then we do have live birds of prey here today, too. Dana Ford from Braddock Bay Raptor Research is here with some birds of prey, and she'll be here from 10 until noon today. So for a couple of hours, you can pop in and see those birds of prey here as well. So we've got a few things going on here today at the birdhouse. As always, if you are on, we love to know who's on. You can always say hi. If you have questions, you can put those in the comments. And any kind of sightings that you've had. We always like to know what kind of things you're seeing out there in the world. So first of all, as far as birds go right now, a lot of them are sitting on nests. A lot of them are feeding their young that are in the nests. And I thought I'd show you this photo that was sent in from Bob of this Oriole that was at his feeder, because it shows what's called a brood patch on this Oriole. So I love this photo because it shows that little bare patch there on this female. And the female birds will have that as a way to help keep their eggs warm. So it helps the flow of the warm body to the egg by having that naked patch of skin there. So the female will sit on the eggs, and the eggs will cozy right up onto that brood patch, and that's one way to help keep them warm. So when they're sitting on the nest, they'll snuggle into their eggs like that. So right now, we get a lot of phone calls around this time of the year of small birds being on the ground, and that's really common this time of the year. Once the birds have fledged, once they've left the nest, it's not uncommon to see them on the ground, just like this blue jay right here. And what happens is, for a couple of days after they've physically left the nest, they will be on the ground, and the parents will still feed them. So as long as the bird doesn't look injured, and especially if the parents are still coming to it, you should leave the bird there. Now, if it looks physically injured, or if there's a threat to the bird, you might want to intervene. But in general, it is totally natural for these fledglings to be on the ground or close to the ground, and for them to be flapping their wings. Even if they have those short stubby wings and they're not really flying yet, that's one way that they get the attention from their parents, so to keep feeding them. So it's totally common to see this kind of thing this time of the year. So don't feel to intervene if you do happen to see a little bird on the ground. So this is a little blue jay, but this could be said for a whole bunch of other birds as well. And as far as the different birds that are having babies go, right now there's lots of reports of little baby woodpeckers. Here's some great photos sent in by Mark of the northern flickers. So they are a cavity nesting bird, just like the other woodpecker species. And what you'll notice now is that birds are going through a lot of insect material. They're feeding their babies lots and lots of insects so they can use all that protein to grow large. In just a couple of weeks, they will leave the nest. So if you're looking for some ways to kind of entice more birds to your backyard and to give these babies the protein they need, I would highly suggest you putting out some kind of mealworms. We do have live mealworms. We have freeze-dried mealworms. And it doesn't have to be in anything super elaborate. Just a little cup like this is perfect. You might have one already as an Oriole feeder or a bluebird feeder. So just putting some mealworms in there, you'll notice, especially this time of the year, you'll get a whole bunch of different species coming to eat those mealworms. They'll grab a beakful a lot of the times and bring them to their nests to feed their nestlings. And that includes Orioles too. If you're still getting Orioles, you might want to put out some mealworms to keep enticing them to come back. So here's some northern flicker young that Mark was able to capture in a cavity. And then there's a couple other photos he sent in of the northern flicker. And this is a really good one because you can see why they're called yellow shafted northern flickers. Here on the East Coast, we have yellow shafted northern flickers. On the West Coast, they have red under their wings. But when they fly, you can see the bright, bright yellow of the northern flicker. And now this is an interesting photo here. So this looks like the flicker there is flying away from the nesting cavity there in the back, and it's got something in its mouth. So this is a behavior that birds will do to keep their nests clean. So actually what's in this bird's beak is a fecal sac. Ugh, I know, gross. But what it's doing is cleaning out the debris and the droppings of the young. And so it's not uncommon to see them bringing this out of the nest. So those young, as they're growing, they're doing their business as well. And that can make the nesting cavity quite, quite dirty, if you will. And so the here's a picture of the flicker bringing some of that out of the of the nesting cavity. So this is a sure sign of young being in the nest here. So really cool picture there, sent in by Mark. And then here's some other photos that he had sent in earlier of more woodpecker young. This is the pileated woodpecker here with the little babies sticking their heads out of the tree. Really fun. So now especially is the time where if you're out in the woods, keep an eye out on all of those little holes that are in the trees, because you might see some little heads or little beaks sticking out for as those young anticipate the parents coming back to feed them. This is a photo sent in by Bob of some more woodpeckers. And this is a young downy woodpecker here on the left. So you can usually tell if it's a baby. Sometimes they look like they haven't grown into their bodies yet, and sometimes their beaks look huge. Their feathers usually aren't as long, and sometimes their feathers are all disheveled, and they kind of look confused sometimes. They sometimes don't have the proper footing, and they kind of flop around on your feeders a lot. But this is a little downy woodpecker baby here. It was a really cute photo. And then this is a red-bellied woodpecker. It looks like a juvenile to me. Again, its feathers are all kind of flustered there and all disheveled. So there's your red-bellied woodpecker. And then some more nesting activity of maybe not your most common backyard bird, but this was a really cool sighting sent in by Bob. He says, guess what I found today? A warbling vireo nest. It is in a tree right behind my house. I had no idea it was there. And so here he was able to snap a photo of that warbling vireo nest. So it just goes to show you never know what kind of birds you might have nesting in your backyard. So really cool sighting there, sent in by Bob. More nesting activity. And keep in mind too, if you are logging any of your bird sightings, if you're on eBird and you're putting in the different species that you're seeing right now, because New York is going through its breeding bird atlas, you can also put in any kind of breeding activity you see, like a bird sitting on its nest or recently fledged. If you happen to see a young bird on the ground, or if you see a young bird at your feeder, that's considered a recently fledged young. You can log all those sightings too, and that helps track what birds are breeding where and when for the atlas. So keep that in mind as well. If you're using eBird, you can also log your breeding bird activity that you happen to be seeing. Here's some more photos sent in by Bob. It says early bird gets the caterpillar. Yellow warbler and warbling vireo are early in the morning. So here's the yellow warbler here with some kind of a caterpillar. When these birds are feeding their babies, they're feeding them lots of insects, but they're feeding them specifically really soft-bodied insects. So you tend not to see them with big beaks of like beetles and that kind of thing because they have such a hard shell. But you'll see them with caterpillars, you'll see them with spiders, crickets. So that's another reason why they come to mealworms so much, because they have that softer body. They don't have a really hard exoskeleton like some insects do. So there is not only a yellow warbler, but a warbling vireo there with some caterpillars in their beaks. So some delicious food there for their young. And then another set of photos sent in by Bob of chipping sparrow. He says, chipping sparrow fledgling. I've been listening to the young being fed by mom and dad, but struggled to actually see the nest. This evening, I noticed a bird struggling to fly, and it was on the road right underneath where I believe the nest is. It looked like it was jumping over and over about 3 feet high off the ground, and eventually managed to make it to my yard. I double checked the Crosley ID guide, and it matches a young chipping sparrow. So here's an example of one of these fledgling birds that have left the nest. They're learning how to fly, so you'll see them on the ground. So that is really a really common thing to see this time of the year. And Bob brings up a book called the Crosley ID Guide. This is an awesome book. It shows not only all the different species here in the eastern US, but it shows all their different plumages. So usually in field guides, you'll see they've got the male plumage, the female plumage. Sometimes they have the juvenile, but not always. But this Crosley ID Guide has plumages for everything. So first year fledgling, what they look like in the fall, what they look like in the spring. And it also shows them in their habitat, which I really like too. So it helps kind of identify where you would see some of these birds. So for example, here is an egret, the snowy egret. So it shows what it looks like. You can see their postures, and you can see all the different plumages and the habitat, the type of habitat you would find it in. So really cool guide. So that's the Crosley ID Guide. So very good. That's a really good book. It's kind of big to bring around with you if you're going birding. You don't want to throw it in your backpack, but it's a good one to keep in your car or something like that if you're out birding. Here's an eastern bluebird. This one looks a little bit not so much like a fledgling, but an adult male there, and you might see them coming and going from houses right now as they're feeding their young as well. So the young bluebirds will have more speckles on them than the males, but the bluebirds are definitely out and feeding their nestlings as well. And some of them are on their second brood of the year, so they'll have 2 or 3 broods, and they are definitely still showing some nesting activity. We've been getting lots of reports about house wrens nesting as well. We did a walk over at Tinker Nature Park on Thursday and saw a house wren coming and going from one of the houses as well, which was pretty cool. And here's a photo sent in by Bob of a house wren. So they are using nest boxes a lot right now. And then there's these photos that Chris sent in of her fledgling chickadees, which were really, really cute. They were nesting in a tree stump. So again, more birds that are going to be eating those caterpillars and mealworms. Chickadees especially, if you've got those in your backyard, they really like the mealworms as well. And here's a picture of it looks like one of the parents here with a little caterpillar in its mouth. And here's the baby who has left the nest. So this kind of shows too how the parents will still feed the young even after they've left the nest. So really cute photos there of the chickadee. And you can see almost how the beak looks almost like too big for the bird's body. So really cute. And then here's the adult sticking its head out of the nesting cavity. Killdeer. This was taken by our own Steve, who works here. He happened to see a killdeer just hanging out in a parking lot there. So keep an eye out for that. You never know what kind of young birds you'll see and where. And mallards, if you've been anywhere by any kind of water, you've probably seen mallard ducks with their babies, and they can have quite a few. I believe there's 10 in this photo that was sent in by Karen. So this mother has her hands full. So ducks are out there, geese, those geese babies don't take very long to grow up. A lot of them are starting to look more like the parents. So there's lots of babies out there right now with the waterfowl species as well. Cuckoo, we're still getting reports of cuckoos, especially with these the caterpillar activity and some of the caterpillar outbreaks. Like if you happen to have tent caterpillars around or gypsy moth caterpillars around, be on the lookout for the different cuckoo species. There's the yellow-billed cuckoo, which you can see here, and it's got the yellow bill and it's got a lot of white on its tail. You tend to hear them first before you see them. At least that's been my experience personally. But they have been spotted around people's yards and in the parks. Like here's a photo sent in by Mark, who saw one at Mendon Ponds. Bob has been seeing one in his yard. So here's a great photo sent in by Bob of yellow-billed cuckoo. And Bob also sent in this photo the other day of this strange looking bird. He says, although I don't see the brow, this has to be a red-eyed vireo, right? Probably one of the most heard birds for me on the Merlin app. Do you think that bird with the red eye? And so he sent it in this photo, and then he said, do you think the bird photo with the red eye I posted this morning is a black-billed cuckoo? It was so low to the ground, it never even crossed my mind until now. Merlin says it is, so we'll go with that. So yeah, it's not super common that you happen to see a bird with a bright red eye. If you've been using the Merlin app, like I know a lot of us have been to ID different birds based on their call, red-eyed vireo is probably one that's going to keep popping up, because not only are they quite common, especially if you have any kind of woods around you, but they just sing and sing and sing. So they'll sing all day, they'll sing through the summer. So you'll probably hear red-eyed vireo. They tend to be really high up in the trees, so they can be hard to see, especially now with all the leaves that have come out on the trees. So red-eyed vireo are super common, but yeah, what it looks like Bob was able to snap here is, in fact, a black-billed cuckoo. So we do have two different species here, the yellow-billed, which we just saw, and then this is the black-billed, which does have that red eye. So red-eyed vireo also have a red eye. Eastern towhee will have a red eye. But yeah, it looks like this is a black-billed cuckoo. And here's a photo of it to kind of show you the comparison between that and the yellow-billed cuckoo. So its beak is all black. It has that red eye, and it's very dark in color and doesn't have a lot of white on its tail. This photo of a black-billed cuckoo was sent in by Bob earlier. And he says that he was including some of these shots because it shows its hunched over posture, which they're known for. So you can kind of see that here with this photo as well. So some more sightings of black-billed cuckoo. Last year, there were lots of sightings of yellow-billed cuckoo and some black-billed cuckoo. And it seems like this year we're getting some pretty good sightings of both. So you never know. Keep your eyes out for them, especially if you've got lots of caterpillars in your trees. And here's another photo there showing the back of the black-billed cuckoo. So some other photos sent in, not necessarily baby bird photos, but here is a green heron having some kind of a snack here at Kingsman Park. And another photo sent in by Mark. It looks like it's eating some kind of a fish. These herons will go after fish. They'll go after frogs. So you can find them by the water. And here's some more photos here of the green heron. Some candid photos. This one looks like it's mad. I like this photo here. So it's looking dead on in the camera. And warblers, some more warbler activity. We saw the photo sent in by Bob of the yellow warbler. So there's definitely still yellow warblers out there. They sing a lot as well. Common yellowthroat. This photo was sent in by Mark, who saw a common yellowthroat, and also chestnut-sided warbler. So usually we think, mid-May, like a month ago, would be the best time to see warblers, which it is, but there's still some around. So if you happen to be out in the park and you see something kind of bouncing around in the tree, take a close look, because it could still be a warbler. They can just be hard to see because with all the leaves in the trees, they can be hard to get a good view of what it is you're actually seeing. Baltimore Orioles, we've had more people reporting that they're still getting Orioles at their feeder than I think any year before. Usually around now, they've kind of the amount of times they've been coming to the feeders has kind of died off a little bit, and they're going to just mealworms if you've put out mealworms. But we're still getting lots of people who say that they're eating the jelly. So I'm curious if you guys are finding that as well, that you're still getting Orioles at your feeder eating the jelly. And it's only going to be a matter of time. It wouldn't surprise me if it starts happening next week sometime, that the Orioles will start bringing their young to the feeder, because it doesn't take them very long to go from hatchling to fledgling and leaving the nest. So it's been a couple weeks since we've seen a lot of this nesting behavior. So they should be leaving the nest kind of soon. So be on the lookout at your feeders for Orioles coming back to your feeders and either feeding their young the mealworms or getting a beak of jelly and feeding their young that. So they'll bring them to the feeders so the young know where to go and get some food. So this is a fun time of the year. You'll see that. You'll also see it a lot with like woodpeckers. If you've got your suet feeder out, the woodpeckers will do that quite a bit as well. Another photo sent in by Mark. Here's a great blue heron. So we saw a green heron and a great blue heron. And then a female red-winged blackbird. So female red-winged blackbirds look quite different than the males. They almost look like a large sparrow. They look very, very different. So if you're by a wetland and you see something that looks like a large sparrow, it could very well be a female red-winged blackbird. They usually have some kind of a yellowish wash on their face, and they have a pretty large, sharp, thin beak. So that is your female red-winged blackbird. It's a great photo there. And then some non-birding photos. This was sent in a couple of other flying friends by Bob. And you can see right in front of the stop sign here, there is a tiger swallowtail. So definitely lots of butterfly activity happening right now. And that will just continue to increase through the summer. So this is the eastern tiger swallowtail, which we definitely have around here. And then this photo was sent in by Bob as well. And I had to look this one up because I can never remember what it is. This is called a little wood satyr. And if you're ever wondering what kind of butterflies you are seeing, we have a really great resource in Rochester called the Rochester Butterfly Club. And they have a list of all of our local butterflies. So it'll help you narrow it down. If you have a field guide of butterflies of the whole East Coast or North America, that can be a lot to digest. But this Rochester Butterfly Club, and they do have a website. You can go on there and you can see all the different species. They do have a list of all of those, and that can help you narrow down exactly what it is you're seeing. So I find that to be a really great resource. They also have on there different plants that you can use to attract both the adult butterflies and the host plants for them to lay their eggs on for their caterpillars to develop. So a really good resource there. That's the Rochester Butterfly Club. Some other butterflies you might see, black swallowtail we've talked about before. They can look a little different based on their coloration. Sometimes they have a lot of yellow, sometimes they have a lot of blue, but they'll always have these little polka dots here on the base of their wing where there's a little red. They'll also have a little black polka dot in between there, unlike the Spicebush Swallowtail, which is another swallowtail species we have here that'll lay its eggs on spicebush. We have giant swallowtail. This is probably going to be your most common species that you'll see, the Cabbage White butterfly. I know I get a bunch of those in my backyard. Pearl crescents are starting to come out. This is a little orange butterfly called the pearl crescent. Baltimore checker spot, that's one of my favorites. Haven't heard of any reports of the monarch butterflies yet, so I'm curious if you guys have seen any. It's only a matter of time, but the milkweed in my garden is just about to bloom. So usually once that milkweed blooms, we start to see the monarch butterflies coming. So that is everything I have prepared for you guys today. If you are interested in butterflies, we do have a couple books that are quite good. We've got this one called The Life Cycles of Butterflies. I like this because it shows the how the caterpillars develop, because sometimes they can look quite different based on how old the caterpillar is. So caterpillars have what are called different instars. As they're growing, they'll shed their skin. And each time they shed their skin, they can look quite different. Like this is the tiger swallowtail. It shows you the egg, and then it shows you the caterpillar and how it looks over time. So they can look quite different based on whether or not they just came out of the egg or if they've been out eating for a week or so. They can look quite different. So that's a good one. And then we also have this Stokes butterfly book. And I like this one a lot because it gives like a species by species account of the different butterflies and what you can use to attract them to your yard using plants. So this is a really good one too if you're interested in some butterfly stuff. And then just insects in general. This is my favorite bug guide, the Kaufman Insect Guide. It's got butterflies in it, but it also has so many other things like bees and beetles and all that good stuff. So it's just some fun things if you're out in the garden and want to be identifying some of the stuff that you have. Those are really, really good. So let's see who's on this morning. Stephanie's on. She says, Mark's photos are amazing. Yes, Mark is always sending in some really good photos, including this one here of the northern flicker feeding its nestlings. So Helene is on. She says, had a northern flicker feeding on the ground here in Pittsford Village. So Helene is seeing some of that activity where you've got the nestling on the ground and it's still eating. Northern flickers tend to feed on the ground as well. So actually it could have been an adult as well. They'll kind of flick around in the debris and get ants and get bugs and that kind of thing. So let's see, Miguel's on. He says, hi from Holly Ridge, North Carolina. Hello. Bob, who sent in a bunch of photos, says, after the storms and winds the past few days, Mama WV is still sitting on the eggs. The house wrens also have a couple of eggs in the nest house. Okay, so he's still seeing some nesting activity as well. Yeah, lots of house wren activity. People are reporting. So sounds like Bob is still seeing them as well. Let's see. Vanna says hello from Mendocino, California. Hello. Stephanie says great shots here, Bob. So yes, Bob also sent in lots of great photos of his birds and butterflies as well. Here's another one of Bob's photos here of the little wood satyr. Stephanie says, I saw my first hummingbird this week. It was at my mock orange bush, ignoring my hummingbird feeders. So yeah, we hear that sometimes. It seems like early in the season, they come to feeders quite often. And it's probably because there's not a ton of things in bloom yet. And then as the season goes on, they seem to prefer those plants that are in bloom that they feed from naturally. So I have not had much luck at all with hummingbirds this year in my yard. So I'm still hopeful. Some of my plants are yet to bloom. So I'm hoping once I get more things in bloom, I'll start to see them. Vicky says, so excited to report that there are 3 baby bluebirds in the birdhouse that recently hatched. Parents are on a frantic feeding mission. Yes. So those parents will spend most of the day gathering insects and feeding them to the young. So another reason, if you're wanting to give them a little something extra, mealworms are definitely the way to go. Catherine says, I have lots of orioles, but haven't seen a hummingbird in a few weeks. So again, more reports of orioles being quite common, but the hummingbirds being sparse. I am finding that myself, and we're hearing that from quite a few people, actually. And Vicky says, yes, 2 male orioles were in a bird fight over the feeder yesterday. So Vicky's still getting, sounds like lots of orioles coming to her feeder still. So we still have plenty of jelly here. If you need more birdberry jelly, we definitely have that in stock if you're needing to feed your orioles. Stephanie says, we didn't get any orioles this year. The squirrels and catbirds enjoyed the oranges, jelly, and mealworms I put out. So sounds like some other critters were enjoying the spread, including catbirds and squirrels, but no orioles. I'm sorry to hear that. Vanna says, how do I attract more woodpeckers? I live amongst the oaks and madrones way up in the mountain. Only have a couple around, I believe. They're the Harry or the Williamson. So the best way to get more woodpeckers is to put out a suet feeder. So woodpeckers definitely love that. They do nest in houses and in hollow trees, that kind of thing. So if you have any trees that are dead or dying, you don't want to keep them up if they're a hazard, but if you can keep those up, they will feed off of those trees and they'll nest in those trees. So that's another way that you can attract woodpeckers. But probably the simplest way is with a suet feeder. Vanna also says, can I attract mockingbirds? I live up in the mountains, so there are 90. I miss them. They make every kind of magical tune in the world. Some people don't like them. I make up for them. I love them. So yeah, mockingbirds, they're not a super typical backyard bird, but people do get them. They just like the catbirds, like how Stephanie was saying she's getting catbirds eating her jelly. Sometimes people get mockingbirds coming to their jelly. They eat a lot of insects as well. So having some kind of a combination of the jelly and the mealworms can really help with the attracting the mockingbirds. So good luck. They are pretty fun. They can sing so many different songs. So that's they're definitely fun to have around. She says, we don't have Stellars, Jays, or Blue Jays either. They seem to live down farther. I don't think I have the right kind of food around here. I do buy all kinds of bird seed, yet I just get the little cuties. So Blue Jays and Stellars Jays, they'll both eat peanuts, especially peanuts in the shell. So that's something you could put out to help attract those. I love Stellar's jays. Those are so, so cool. They're one of my favorite birds to see going out west. They're just so, so cool. Let's see. Susan says, besides the Orioles, I have cardinals and finches eating the jelly too. How funny is that? Last year I had a cardinal eating my jelly and a house finch. This year I've got house sparrows that are eating it like mad. So you just never know what'll be on your jelly feeder. In general, you tend not to get these kind of birds eating the jelly, but here we all are with our different sightings. Vonna also says, I have hummingbirds everywhere this morning. They like my garden and my one hummingbird feeder with 7 little red flowers around it. So it sounds like Vanna's having good luck with hummingbirds, which is great. Out west, they have more species as well. We only have one species here, unfortunately. So we don't have the diversity that's out there on the West Coast. King Joffrey is on and with a tip about mockingbirds. He says, my mockers love peanut butter. So with a mix of peanut butter and perhaps jelly and mealworms, you can help to attract those mockingbirds. So stuff you might just already have in your refrigerator and closet. Bob is on. He says, been seeing a lot of cedar waxwings. Have a pair gathering nesting material. Ooh, that's exciting. We saw some cedar waxwings on Thursday, also on our birding walk, which was really cool. They were eating some berries. Looked like I think it was mountain ash berries. So that was a fun sighting of some cedar waxwings. So it sounds like they're going to be nesting soon too. It looks like that's everybody's comments and questions for today. We'll be back on Tuesday at 10 o'clock talking about squirrel proofing. It is possible. So it is possible to squirrel proof your setup, and we'll show you how you can do it. It can take a little bit of maneuvering sometimes, but it is possible. So we'll be back on Tuesday talking about that. In the meantime, have a great weekend to all you dads out there. Happy Father's Day, and we will see you on Tuesday.